Right now, somewhere in your house, your dog is alone in a room. The door is closed. You are not there. And you have probably wondered, just for a second, what is actually happening inside its head? Is it sleeping? Is it staring at the door? Is it thinking about you at all? Most people assume the answer is simple. They assume an animal left alone just waits, a kind of blank pause, like a paused video, until the owner comes home and presses play again. The real answer is far stranger than that, because the moment you leave the room, something measurable happens inside that brain. Not metaphorically, not poetically, measurably. And what happens next reveals something almost nobody expects about the inner life of the creatures who live alongside you. Let's start with the obvious question. Do animals even have an inner life when no one is watching? For most of the 20th century, the scientific answer was a flat no. Behaviorist psychology, the dominant framework from the 1920s through the 1960s, treated animals as input-output machines. Stimulus goes in, response comes out. What happens in between was considered unknowable, unmeasurable, and frankly irrelevant. You feed the dog salivates. There is no inner experience worth discussing. This idea didn't come from cruelty, it came from caution. Scientists like B.F. Skinner believed that talking about an animal's feelings was unscientific because feelings can't be observed directly. Only behavior can. But here's the problem with that idea. The moment researchers started measuring what happens physiologically when an animal is left alone, the entire framework began to crack. Take cortisol. This is the hormone your body releases under stress, and it is measurable in blood, saliva, and even fur. In the 1990s, researchers led by Patricia McConnell and later expanded by separation anxiety specialists across veterinary behavior, science documented something striking. Dogs left alone don't just sit quietly. Their cortisol levels spike, sometimes within minutes. Heart rate increases. In many cases, the dog begins pacing, vocalizing, or engaging in destructive behavior, not because it is badly behaved, but because its nervous system is registering something close to genuine distress. That is not nothing happening. That is something happening intensely. So, what is it exactly? Here's where the science gets interesting. Dogs are an unusual case because they evolved alongside humans for roughly 15,000 years, becoming, in a sense, biologically wired for connection with you specifically. Researcher Brian Hare, who runs the Duke Canine Cognition Center, has spent decades studying this. His research suggests dogs developed something close to a specialized social radar, an ability to read human gestures, faces, and emotional states that even chimpanzees, despite being far more intelligent in other domains, simply don't have. Which means when a dog is alone, it isn't just bored. In many cases, it is missing a social bond that its brain is specifically built to maintain. But not every animal experiences solitude the same way. Take cats. For decades, cats were assumed to be indifferent to human presence, content and total independence. But a 2019 study by Kristen Vitale at Oregon State University challenged this. Vitale's research found that the majority of cats tested showed secure attachment behavior toward their owners, similar in structure to attachment patterns seen in human infants and dogs. Many cats, it turns out, do register your absence. They just don't always show it the way a dog does. Now, here's where things shift from emotional to cognitive. What is an animal's brain actually doing with its time when no social interaction is available? This is where a concept called default mode network becomes relevant. In humans, this is the brain network that activates when you are not focused on a task. It is responsible for daydreaming, mind-wandering, and a kind of internal narrative replay. For a long time, scientists assumed this kind of unstructured inner experience required human-level language and self-reflection. Then came the elephants. Researcher Joshua Plotnick, building on work from cognitive ethologists studying complex mammals, has documented elephants engaging in behavior that looks remarkably like rehearsal or replay when alone. Captive elephants without immediate social contact have been observed performing repeated patterned movements, almost as if mentally revisiting past experiences. Whether this constitutes anything like human daydreaming is still debated, but the behavior is consistent enough that researchers can't dismiss it as random. And then there's a stranger possibility. What if some animals aren't replaying memories at all when alone, but instead entering something closer to a low-power state, a kind of cognitive idle? Octopuses offer a clue here, though an unusual one. Octopuses are almost entirely solitary by nature. Unlike dogs or elephants, they don't appear to suffer from being alone, because evolutionarily, alone is their default state. Researcher Jennifer Mather, who has spent decades studying octopus cognition, has documented complex problem-solving and exploratory behavior in octopuses kept in isolation, suggesting their minds remain highly active even without any social stimulus whatsoever. For an octopus, solitude isn't an absence. It's simply the baseline condition under which its mind operates. This is the moment the question gets interesting for you, because solitude means something completely different depending on the architecture of the brain experiencing it. For a dog, alone time can trigger something close to genuine separation. Distress, a nervous system reacting to the loss of a bond. It evolved specifically to maintain. For an elephant, alone time might trigger something resembling memory replay, an internal world built from social history. For an octopus, alone time might simply be neutral, the natural resting frequency of a mind that never depended on company in the first place. And for you, you are perhaps the only species on the planet that can simulate the experience of being alone, even while surrounded by people, and simulate connection, even while physically isolated. Researcher John Cacioppo, who spent his career studying loneliness at the University of Chicago, found that perceived isolation, not actual physical isolation, was the strongest predictor of stress hormone elevation in humans. You don't need an empty room. You need only the feeling of one, which raises an uncomfortable mirror. If a dog alone in a room is releasing stress hormones because its evolved social radar detects an absence, and you alone in a crowded room are releasing the same hormones because your evolved social radar detects the same kind of absence, then the line between animal loneliness and human loneliness might be far thinner than you assumed. So, what is actually happening inside an animal's mind when it's alone? For some, it's distress. For others, it's memory. For others, it's simply nothing unusual at all, just the quiet hum of a mind running its default program. But the deeper answer might be this: solitude isn't empty, not for the elephant replaying its past, not for the dog whose body is chemically registering your absence, not for the octopus exploring a tank with no audience watching, and not for you scrolling through your phone in a room full of people, feeling, for reasons your ancient nervous system understands better than your conscious mind does, completely and utterly alone. Your dog is still in that room, and whatever is happening inside its head right now is not nothing. It never was.